So this article basically introduced the idea that specifically in North America, the workplace has been evolving and changing in favoring of introducing women. But despite the fact that women have increasingly committed themselves to joining the workforce, not much has really changed socially concerning the family aspect and how the home life really isn't that fair. And it basically, most data shows that most women are still performing most, if not all, of the house labor, and basically, men aren't really satisfying how women need them to participate as well. So this article talked about different things such as like the predictors, like how could men do this knowing that women are entering the workforce. And basically it all depends on the employment of the man, the employment of the woman, the amount of income they're making, and basically the culture and the ideologies that they're following. So then the authors went to talk about different types of tasks performed in the home. So many research has shown like a few different types, but there's routine tasks which are performed on a day-to-day basis, like laundry, cooking, cleaning. There's intermittent tasks which are like done more on an occasional basis, like fixing the car, stuff like that. And then there's childcare tasks which also need to be on a day-to-day basis, depending on like whether or not they have children. And then for the methods section, the authors didn't perform like interviews or stuff like that. They examined previous studies that have been done throughout the 2000s. Basically, they looked at the different styles in which they interviewed. There was earlier in the 2000s, it was pencil and paper, like writing specifically the interviews, and then there was actual interviews in which participants were usually asked how many hours they spent doing this task, how many hours. It's basically very hours spent, and there was a time diary that was also a type of method that they looked at. And this one was really more beneficial because it told you like on a 24-hour basis what women did. And they also talked about like how researchers also like to use surveys, like national surveys, like taken nationally, to take statistics and stuff like that. So for the results of this section, a few things were pointed out, like economically speaking. One study found that the amount of housework a woman does really does affect the amount of income she makes, because usually when a woman does more housework, it's more of a traditional type of relationship, and she's not doing as much work outside of the home. And then there was this perspective proposed by another study called the relative resource perspective, and that's basically how most people consider housework to be like a task that they don't want to do. It's unpleasant to them, and that can basically affect how like what happens in a relationship and stuff like that. And then for education, that's another one that was mentioned. As a result, a study found that when a woman is more educated in a relationship than a man is, the gender gap actually like is smaller, and the gender roles can become more interchangeable. And then also there's they talked about gender roles, gender ideology, basically how there's egalitarian relationships, there's traditional relationships, and also how culture and politics and social standings can affect these types of gender role relationships. And finally, there's also been national studies taken, like not just testing the United States or North America, it's been testing like all over the world to see if it's just us having this issue, and like how the culture basically changes the type of relationships and the allocations of work.